So, to respond to this, to Wamboi, yeah, so I wanted to share my experience in the Dubai driving license, maybe just to encourage somebody. Or, so for those who are in the attempts, this is my story on how I personally experienced it. It was very tough for me. Maybe for some it was easier, but for me it was very tough. And first of all, before I start, I strongly recommend that you get the packages that now they have, where you can pay, I think, 8,000, and then you get to do as many attempts as possible. Especially if you don't, even if you have experience from driving before, sometimes you may just need the package. Because personally, back then I started this attempt very long time ago, about 2 years ago. It was in I think April in 2023, because at some point I had to drop out for a year because it was getting very expensive. So I spent roughly 500,000 Kenya shillings, that is around 15,000 dirhams, to get my driving license. That is why I recommend that if you can, just get the package. Back then when I tried, I didn't know of Tabi, Tamara, those installment payment options, maybe, because I'm pretty sure if that was an option, I would have taken that. So I just started off by paying it by cash. That is why I ended up paying that much. You see, that's double the amount that I should have paid if I actually took the package. So I went to Galadari. The headquarters is in Al Quoz. It was generally a good school. When you're there, actually, you will not feel like it's good, because it's very frustrating when you're trying to book classes and you're getting frustrated. But afterwards, you will feel like it was a fair school. The instructors were good. They taught me a lot of things. They helped me pass the exams, the tests, the driving tests. They generally helped you on how to survive in these Dubai roads, which is not something very easy, especially for a new driver. So when I enrolled at the school, I started taking first of all, you do the theory test, and that's very easy. You pass in one attempt, and then now the journey begins. You start from this. I was very new at this. I had never driven a car before. This was my first time. So I was starting from the basics. The instructor that I got was very helpful, and he took me through the first experience on the roads. They helped me, but I had a challenge passing the school, because you have to do, first of all, the school driving on the streets of Al Quoz there and generally around, and then now you will start doing the school assessment, and then after that you will do the parking classes, and then you will do the school assessment for the parking. So then that way, if you pass all those, you'll be pushed to now start your RTA assessments. And so I had a challenge right from the school. In fact, I suffered more in school than out in RTA, because I failed so many times in the school assessments just for driving. I failed almost 5 times, and every time I had to take classes again, and I had to redo the test. And the same went on until at some point I passed. Then I went to the parking. The school parking assessment after the classes. And at that point, I was failing so many times. I failed almost 6 times until I gave up. Actually, I gave up at the 4th attempt, and then I took a long break, because also money was running short. So I took a long break out of the school, almost a year. Actually, it was more than a year, because the whole of 2024, I don't think I took any classes or did any tests. So the whole of 2024, I took a break just to re-strategize. And then after that, after I saw many of my friends were getting licenses and they were new drivers, I got some encouragement to go back. So I went back to Galadari, but by that time my file was expired. I had to renew my file again. I paid, I think, almost 500 to renew my driving file again, and then I started again. So I took more classes. I renewed my permits. By the I don't know, I renewed my driving permits so many times. I think 8 times, because every 3 months you have to get you renew it. The learning permit. That's what they call it, the learning permit. Almost 8 times. So I went back to school, and then I took the parking classes, and then I started doing the parking assessments, and it was very challenging. It's very hard, especially I was suffering doing the parallel parking. It was very, at that point, it was very difficult to pass that. So I kept on doing fast like I was passing each parking by one attempt. You know, when you do the assessment, you have to do all the slope test, the brake, all the 3 parkings, angle, garage parking, and what's the other one, the parallel parking. So on every test I was failing all of them and passing one, and then the next test I fail all of them and pass one. I have completely blocked all the amounts of money that I used to pay for those classes and for those tests, because it was traumatizing, because I had to keep on paying, and you can imagine it's so expensive. Yeah, so I just know the total because I can see it from the school app. There's an app where you book your classes, so the total amount shows there of all the amounts that I paid there. That is without counting what I directly paid to RTA for the tests, because sometimes I was booking the classes directly on the RTA app, so that does not include on those amounts on that app. Oh my god, I think it should be more. Yeah, so at some point I passed. After you do many attempts, it becomes easier. So I passed, and then I started doing the RTA. So my parking, with RTA you start with parking. The same thing happened again. It took me the whole of 2025 of going to Alcuz in Galedari, trying to get the license, trying to pass my parking. In the RTA, I had to take the test, and every time I passed one thing. Funny thing is that when I was taking my RTA parking tests, assessment, my first attempt, I passed the garage. That was the first thing I passed, and then I failed everything else. And then when I went back again, I passed the slope. Can you imagine the first attempt I failed slope and I failed the emergency brake? I don't know. Tell me if you ever failed. I don't know. I've not met anyone who failed on emergency brake and slope. So the second attempt I passed. I did all of them. Remember, every time I have to do all the tests, but I fail on all of them and pass one. And then I go back again, and then I fail all the rest, and then I pass one. Okay, when you pass one, you don't have to redo it again. So now you go with less of them, less pressure on you. So the last thing I was stuck at is the parallel, which I did. I went 2 times to try and do it, and finally the last time I passed. Now the drama began. Now I went to start doing the final road assessments. That was the most challenging thing I have ever done in my life. Every time you go there, you take the classes. You know, every time you fail, you have to take 4 hours of classes. Remember, 4 hours of classes, you cannot take all of them together. So that means that is 2 days that you have to take aside to drive for 2 hours. So every Saturday and Sunday, I was there in Alcuz driving. I have memorized the streets of Alcuz because we had to drive round and round and round for 2 hours every Saturday and 2 hours every Sunday, because I'm working weekdays, so I'm not able to take classes during that time, and I didn't feel like it was helping me to take night classes because my tests will be done during the day. So I was spending all my weekends in Alcuz, and every day I was going there, taking the 4 hours, going back again on Monday morning or Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning. I was booking the test very early in the morning, just with the hope that the roads are going to be clearer by that time. If you've taken your test in Alcuz, you know how there's so many trucks there, and you can literally find a truck stuck on the road and you have no idea how to react. You panic, and that's when you fail. And there's so many people walking around. It's not open street. In Alcuz, there's people in bicycles, there's jaywalkers, there's all kinds of things, small roundabouts that you'll not be able to know how to react. And all of those, I ended up failing 6 times. That is the final road test. I failed 6 times, and I passed on my 6th attempt. And what I feel like in the 6th attempt, why I passed, is by that time I was already so used to that road. I was already used to, like, my body language already gotten used to the driving and everything. And at that point, I'd already given up. I was like, okay, let's do this again. We've been doing this for so long, so it's just another day of trying to pass this thing. And surprisingly, that day I passed. Yeah, it was a really challenge. So generally, I took my final road test 6 times, my parking 6 times with RTA, and each of those I was paying cash. The school assessment, I don't even want to remember that. I think it was more times because I suffered there for so long, and I even had to drop out for a whole year. So it was a very big challenge, but finally when I got my license, it was such a relief. It was such a relief. I cannot imagine. So the major challenge that you'll find is the timings for booking the classes. Sometimes when you go, you fail the test and you go and trying to book the next slot, it's like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks even, sometimes even 4.